Good evening, and welcome to the Town of Stow Select Board meeting for September 12th, 2023. First order of business is public comment. I will take comment for up to 2 minutes on anything that is not on the agenda. Before you speak, please identify yourself and give your address for the record. And see if anybody here in the audience is interested in making public comment now. No? Anybody online? No? Do we have board member comments this time? No. Hector?
Just to acknowledge that September 15th through October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourage residents to take the opportunity to go to the Hispanic and Latin American cultures display at the Randall Library, as well as the NASJA Book Club is reviewing the book Borderless by Jennifer De Leon. And also acknowledge Rosh Hashanah coming up for all those of the Jewish faith.
Thank you. And Town Administrator's report.
Thank you. I would like to start tonight by thanking the police, fire, highway department, and building commissioner for their work last Friday in that very quick but heavily damaging storm. All of our town resources were really put to the test with the response that was needed. As you can imagine, cleanup from the highway and conservation continues in town through this week. And as a result of that, Flag Hill and Heath Hen trails are still closed due to the extensive tree damage. So if people still see trees down or damage, we are working on it. Highway has been out continuously. I would like to also acknowledge Hudson Light and Power. I think we have some work to do with communication from them, but they have been out doing a ton of work as well. So really appreciate everyone's time. We had folks come back that were off duty. We had to call folks that weren't on duty. It was an all-out effort Friday night. So I'd like to thank all of them. I would also like to formally welcome Lieutenant Kelly Barheit to Stow. Her first day in swearing-in ceremony was at the height of the storm. So we had to quickly shift in that ceremony, and unfortunately none of her coworkers could attend because they were dealing with the emergency in town. But we joked that she's starting off in town with a bang, so, you know, it's gonna be great from here. So she's been great. She was in town this weekend. There was a situation that she came in for, and folks that have not had a chance to meet her, she will be at town meeting as one of the officers. So folks see her, please extend a hello and warm welcome. On that note, the special town meeting is Monday, September 18th. Check-in will begin at 5:30 p.m. To keep the process moving, we do ask that folks have their driver's license out. It is just to scan their name. It is not mandatory, and we don't collect any information, but it will keep the lines moving. We do expect a very large turnout, so parking will be available at both Center and Hale School, along Hartley Road, at the former fire station, at the town building, and at St. Isidore's Parish, and a special thanks to Father Jeff for allowing us to use their lot. Just to update the board, as you know, I am the alternate Magic member, and the monthly Magic meeting started back up last week. And I thought it was interesting, their first presentation of the new season, if you will, focused around small businesses and business support. And they are putting together a support listing for small businesses that we will be able to share. They're identifying challenges and recommendations. They want to know how Magic supplement or complement existing small businesses, how they can help. And they will be putting forward some strategies on how to use our EDIC to help conduct business outreach in the community. So it's very informative, and they are starting back up the monthly meeting. So I will keep you informed on any updates there.
What's Magic?
It's the planning, it's the regional planning agency, it's the localized one that we're part of.
Okay.
And that's it this evening.
Great. Next, we have a number of appointments. First of all, a couple of appointments to the Highway Department. Would you like to speak briefly to those?
Sure. So I'll actually do them together. So Nick Whalen and Zach Forest. Nick previously worked here. He worked here back in 2020 and 2021. Left for a better opportunity, and then has gained some additional experience in another community and is excited to come back. We are excited to have him come back. And Zach is new to the public sector, but he has a lot of experience driving and maintaining trucks and landscaping experience. Both Nick and Zach were in the Army, and I think, have great experience and will be a really great addition to our highway department.
Cool. Good timing.
Yes.
Any comments from the board?
No.
I take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Nicholas Whalen to the position of full-time laborer/driver for the Stow Highway Department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Zachary Forest to the position of full-time laborer/driver for the Stow Highway Department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Next, we have an appointment for George, I don't know how to say your last name. Nisotel, thank you. To the Council on Aging for an indefinite term. Hello, George.
Hi,
Thanks for coming.
thanks for having me.
Would you like to say a few words about your involvement and interest?
Well, I started attending in January as an associate, and I look at, I think there's a lot of, like, the issues they're talking about. And so I'd like to get even more involved, plus it's a peer group,
Yeah.
So I like that, I think there's just a lot going on. And I know one of the people has more than he can take, so I'm like, at the next meeting, tell him that I take over some of his.
Great. Yeah, great. Any questions from the board, comments?
No, just thank you.
That's great. I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint George Nisotel to the Council on Aging for an indefinite term.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
George was eager to go to the next meeting, which is this week, so I wanted to get him his appointment letter so he could get sworn in.
Okay, next on the list, Stephanie Lynch. We're appointing Stephanie Lynch to the Conservation Commission to fill the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025. Kathy?
And Stephanie is on, if you'd like
Oh.
to speak with her.
Yeah.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for coming. Would you like to say a few words about?
She's freezing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, she froze.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
At least she's smiling.
Yeah.
There
There you are.
She's back.
A little bit at least flattering.
Yes, it was actually fine.
Can I turn off my video? Would that help?
Yeah.
No, I think it's our side.
Well,
It's fine.
I like to make an entrance, so just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm a big fan of the conservation. I've been a resident of Stow for about 15 years, and they helped me through a construction project, and I worked with them so closely, and I kept on promising I would give back one day, and that day has arrived, so I'm excited for the opportunity.
That's great. That's really
Wonderful.
I think some of our best volunteers come from that experience. Not to say anything bad about all the rest of the volunteers, of course.
Special type of relationship you develop with the company.
Exactly. Thank you for stepping forward. So, any comments or questions from the board?
No.
It's nice to see there's a recommendation also from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't burn bridges.
She's fantastic. I will speak to Stephanie and what a absolute asset to the Concom she's gonna be, so thanks.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. I will take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Stephanie Lynch to the Conservation Commission for the remainder of a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. congratulations and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next we have an appointment of Maria McFarland to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member through June 30th, 2028. And Maria's there. Hello, Maria.
Hi.
Thanks
Thank
for,
you very much.
yeah, you're welcome. So you're, do you want to say a few words about your interest?
Yeah, I've been living in Stow here since 2016. And my background is mostly real estate, construction, property management. And we own a farm here in Stow. And just recently it just felt like, I wanted to get more involved, and the real estate stuff crosses over with a lot of kind of zoning planning. That was also my education background a long time ago. But yeah, just largely looking to learn and hopefully give back any way I can.
That's great. Well, thank you. It sounds like a good fit.
Hope so.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Do we know how, has anybody from the zoning board of appeals discussed her nomination?
Yep.
Or made a recommendation?
No, I don't usually get recommendations from the boards
Why not?
because it's not their appointment.
It's ours.
Well, a recommendation is not an appointment.
Yeah, but that hasn't been the practice.
Let's take that up later.
Okay.
Well, I am on the zoning board of appeals and, sounds like a good appointment, so, that sounds fine.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Just one thing though, in terms of real estate, you have to be careful that, if you're hearing a case that has nothing to do with anything, dealing with your real estate business, but I would assume she would know that.
Yes.
That would be great. Yeah.
I think we're looking forward to having you, and we thank you for
Yes.
stepping forward.
Wonderful.
I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Maria McFarland as an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the remainder of a 5-year term ending June 30th, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi,
Aye, that's unanimous.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have an appointment of Cindy Cummings to the Board of Assessors. This is a joint appointment with the remaining members of the Board of Assessors to fill a vacancy in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11. And here you are. Thank you.
And we have the remaining members. Tom Ryan, Glenn Golder.
Yes.
And Cindy is on
And
Zoom.
Cindy's on. Hello, Cindy.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
Good to
thanks.
see you.
Good.
Thanks for coming. So, do I remember you've attended some meetings already?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're still willing to sign up for a permanent position?
It didn't scare me.
That's great. Hooray for you and for us. Anybody else have comments or questions? Yes, Tom.
Cindy came to one of our meetings, sat through the whole thing. We explained to her what the duties were. She was fully willing to comply with them. One of the things with the Board of Assessors that's unusual, it's the only one that I know of in town, is that you've got about 15 hours of online learning that you have to do to get certified by the state. I didn't realize it until I had to do it, but Cindy's on board with that, and I appreciate her stepping forward. So we discussed it at the meeting, and I think Glenn and I were both in favor of appointing her, in addition to her having actually pulled papers and run. So it shows
Right.
an interest, willingness to do it. She can't, our feeling was that she had to attend at least one board meeting before we would recommend her, because we wanted to explain to her what the duties, responsibilities, requirements were, and she came, lovely person, and I'm thrilled to. I would be thrilled if we can all appoint.
If I could just add,
Your kind words.
it's important that we fill the vacancy too, because, it's a small board, 3 members. And, most of the time, I think we agree on a lot of issues, but occasionally there's like a 1-to-1 split, so it's important to have a majority. And the other issue is occasionally there might be an issue where one of us might have to recuse himself. And in that situation, we desperately need another member because we can't have, one person voting.
Understood.
And it's good that, Cindy's interested, and I think the most important thing, there are a lot of good things about people that volunteer, but the 2 most important things, that you show up, that you have an interest and you show up. And Cindy seems to be fitting those 2 qualifications, and I'm sure she'll do more than that too. So that's good.
One, two.
Sounds
Cindy.
great, thank you. Any further
I just
questions or
have
comments?
one question. There is a time limit as far as the classes, and the certification, is there not?
Yeah, it's a year. It used to be 2 years to take them. One of the things that the state requires is that there are 2 modules out of it. I think it's 0 and 4. Why they don't have 0 and 1, I don't know, but 0 and 4, I believe, are the ones that are required to be able to sign off on the tax rate.
Mhm.
And that's one of the other things, is that should anything ever happen to one of us, it would put the town in a bad situation not to have 2 people to be able to sign off on the tax rate.
So 0 and 4, is that a shorter time period?
That,
I'm just asking to make sure, Cindy, you're willing to meet the time limits.
that's still a year. However, she can't sign off on the tax rate until she has done those, which will be sometime in November, I believe.
Yeah, by November, yeah.
But, it's about 3 hours of classes, but as I said before, Cindy said she would do what it takes, and, I have a feeling she will.
Can I take them out of order?
Yes, you
Sure.
can.
So do those 2 first? And
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep, and feel free to give me a call or Kristen a call, and she'll set you up. One of the things is, I'm assuming you're gonna get voted in tonight, is then after you get sworn in, the town clerk will actually have to set you up with an account at the DOR, and Kristen can help you out with all of that stuff too, so.
Great. Thanks.
and-
Are we ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, in a joint vote with the remaining members of the Board of Assessors, I move to appoint Cindy Cummings to fill the vacancy on the Board of Assessors effective from this date through May 2024 annual town election.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right,
Aye, that's unanimous for the 2 boards.
thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom and Lenny.
Now we'll go lurk in the back.
Okay, switch yourself.
Okay.
Thank
so
you,
we can go
George.
whenever. Yeah.
Did she get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So I have here a certificate of achievement presented to Benjamin J. Doty II in recognition of your achievement of attaining the rank of Eagle Scout. Congratulations, Benjamin, on achieving your goal. We are proud to have you as a member of our community and appreciate the service project you completed in spring 2023, building a footbridge on the Green Trail in the Stow Town Forest. You worked with troop leaders, town officials, and fellow scouts to construct an arched, low-profile, accessible footbridge with railing to assist foot traffic, bikers, and skiers across the Green Trail. We wish you the best of luck in the future. Stow Select. Kathy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of words on behalf of the project sponsor, the Conservation Commission, because I wasn't able to attend Ben's Eagle Court of Honor because I was on vacation. This spot in Town Forest is a place that before we had a bridge there, people literally had to leap across a ditch. And so it's sort of hard to believe that we didn't have something like this. Ben encountered some real construction challenges when he was building it. And I was really proud of the way he stuck with it and, worked with the site to fix the challenges and I think came up with something that we're all really excited about. So I just
Beautiful.
wanted to thank him.
I've used that bridge, it's very sturdy.
Yes, it is.
It hold me up.
It's such a project too, to carry all the lumber into the woods and
It's
Great.
not an easy site to work.
Mm-mm.
we're so lucky to have all these great Eagle Scout projects for our land. Okay, thank you, Benjamin.
Madam Chair, I move to recognize Boy Scout Benjamin J. Doty II for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout and to sign the letter and proclamation for him. Benjamin's Court of Honor took place in August and he is now away at college. The board wishes him all the best in his studies and future plans.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. All right. We now have a public hearing at 7:15 or later for the consolidation of cemetery department and highway department into a Department of Public Works.
I think someone needs to make the motion to enter the public hearing, please.
Right.
Madam Chair, I move to enter into a public hearing on the consolidation of the cemetery department and the highway department into a Department of Public Works by roll call vote.
Second.
Vicky?
Aye.
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 Megan?
Aye.
Courtney votes aye, that's unanimous. Pardon me, getting the hearing notice.
It's a big packet.
Madam Chair, do you want to allow the town administrator to?
Certainly.
So notice is hereby given in accordance with section 5-1 of the Stow Town Charter that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing regarding the consolidation of the Cemetery Department and the Highway Department into a Department of Public Works. Consolidation would be contingent upon an affirmative vote at the September 2023 special town meeting and a ballot question at the annual election in May 2024. And if I may take you through some brief slides. So, I'm not gonna read all this, but this is the sections of the charter that talks about reorganization. So, this is section 5-1 of the charter.
Thank goodness.
So this has not been a quick process. It started right upon my arrival in September of 2020. One of my very first meetings with the cemetery committee, we talked about this. We talked about the decline in volunteerism, how the cemetery committee was getting harder and harder to have volunteers. We talked about some of the inefficiencies in the cemetery department and how we could improve that. So over the course of the last few years, we have been working towards where we are currently. So, step one, I had the meeting with the cemetery commissioners. At the time, they were overseeing the cemetery superintendent, but by charter and bylaw, their role was only to manage the perpetual care fund. Their role was actually not to supervise the employees, it was just to manage the perpetual care. So based on our charter, the cemetery superintendent falls under the town administrator's oversight. The next thing was, in early 2021, we moved daily oversight from myself to the superintendent of streets, so that there was somebody here on a daily basis that would actually check in with the cemetery superintendent. They would go through the tasks, and plan out sort of a work plan. When Dolores came on board, she started meeting weekly with the cemetery superintendent and the superintendent of streets to work through the transition, work through any of sort of the bumps in the road. If someone had an issue, one thing that many people in town had struggled with is communication. So she facilitated communication between the superintendents, how to go about rectifying some of the concerns, the differences, the equipment issues. So she was meeting with them weekly. After that, members of the highway department brought in the Teamsters Union and decided to unionize. The cemetery superintendent voluntarily joined the union as a laborer. At that point, his title changed from cemetery superintendent to cemetery supervisor, and his position was reclassed as a laborer versus a department head, which he was considered. And as a result, the job specifications for his position were changed to follow the union contract, as now he was a part of it. So his hours of work, his uniform requirements, overtime, etc., was all now structured under the same laborers union as the remainder of the highway department, which fell under the superintendent of streets. After that, we moved the cemetery supervisor's office from the former fire station into the highway department. It only made sense that if they were gonna operate under one contract, under one supervisor, they should all be in the same location. That's how you build collaboration and cohesion. Prior to that, there was some concerns that, people felt left out, they weren't communicating effectively because they weren't all under the same roof. So now they're all located in the highway department. Beginning of this process, in the beginning of the superintendent of streets, when the superintendent of streets position was vacant, we met with every member of the highway and cemetery department to discuss the position, the department, consolidation, had a conversation, let everyone weigh in on sort of the future of the department and the personnel in the superintendent position, just to make sure everyone had a voice in the process. As you know, as of July 1st, the cemetery trustees are down to one remaining member, after having only 2 members for over a year. Then recommended Brian Hatch to the permanent superintendent of streets position, which was a unanimous support from all members of the 2 departments. And now Dolores has resumed, we've now gone to monthly meetings with the highway and the cemetery operations. Again, to just continue that facilitation, continue that communication, make sure everyone feels included, and that they all are part of this process. So the next steps are to formally consolidate the highway and the cemetery under Department of Public Works. As you know, the articles will be going to the special town meeting on September 18th. Article 3 is the first article that talks about the consolidation, and then should Article 3 pass, we would go to Article 14, which changes the table of positions that you all appoint, just to formalize that. If Article 3 should not pass, then we would move forward with Article 9, which redoes your positions but keeps the superintendent of streets and cemetery listed in there. Should Article 9 or 14 pass town meeting, it requires a ballot question as it is a charter change. That would be in May 2024. So even if town meeting approves this, nothing could take effect until after the annual election next year to see if the town supports this. So looking at the overall operations, as you know, we've added some laborers. We just appointed 2 tonight. One of those was a new position added last year. When we are interviewing new positions, we make sure that they have skills that could serve both highway and cemetery. We have reduced the need for seasonal cemetery workers. We were hiring cemetery folks to work pretty much from May through Veterans Day. We don't need that now because now we have the staff that can just be reassigned to cover either department. The cemetery department had no administrative help. Now they are physically located in the highway department. The 40-hour admin at the cemetery, at the highway yard also is the 40-hour admin for the cemetery. So there's someone there, there's someone that can answer the phones, deal with patrons as they come in. And in looking at all of this and talking with folks, we've decided that we do not need a full-time administrative assistant, a full-time assistant superintendent, and a full-time superintendent, all handling operation duties. So as part of the reorganization, this is what the original org chart looked like. We had the select board with appointing the cemetery trustees, my appointment, and then cemetery superintendent fell under me, kind of under the cemetery trustees, and then the rest of the highway operations. During transition, we moved the cemetery supervisor just under the superintendent of streets. So it's still sort of a little crazy org chart for one department. And should all this go through, it would be much more streamlined. The select board appoints town administrator, the DPW director, and then all staff, admin staff, cemetery staff, highway staff are all under that same hierarchy. That's it. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Just to review again, so this also has to be approved at town meeting, and the charter include the charter changes in order for it to be completely.
Yes. Yes, so, I mean, the board, we have the right to move staff, so organizationally, it can stay where it is today, but town meeting and the charter needs to remove the cemetery trustees really from the equation, because our charter requires us to have the cemetery
Right.
that we currently don't have.
Can you speak to any like cost savings by doing this? Like, do you feel like consolidating it is actually a fiscally better move?
It is, I don't have cost savings because we're still looking at some of the positions, so we just moved the superintendent in. I'm looking to the, I think the next step would likely be take the, what is currently an administrative assistant position, but changing it into more of a business manager of the department, because he really handles procurement and more things than an admin. And then in that case, we will do away with the assistant superintendent. And then the crew chief would really be the second in command of the department. So it's definitely a cost savings on a number of measures, sharing of equipment, reducing the seasonal staff. I just haven't costed it out.
Oh, I didn't want actual numbers at this moment. No, I just wanted to know, like, if streamlining it is
Yes.
actually going to, in the long run, be a cost saving measure.
Yes.
That is excellent.
When you had discussions with the staff, and I guess in parens, the union, were there any concerns about the consolidation, like job loss or job responsibility reductions or anything like that?
So the consolidation of the two departments? No, there actually was no concern. There were concerns departmental wise. I think people were concerned on who they would report to, you know, what the hierarchy would be, if the business manager was going to be sort of second in command. So we addressed that, no, that is not the case. I think the highway staff seemed to, what's the right word, embrace, I guess, the cemetery supervisor moving up there, because I think there was a disconnect before, and vice versa. The cemetery supervisor was feeling left out, he wasn't involved in decisions, there wasn't communication. So moving them under the same roof, I think definitely helped, just builds more of a camaraderie. But there were no concerns with, and we actually talked to all of the staff about eliminating the assistant superintendent position. And they all said it seems to make sense, given the current staffing that they have, the current personnel, the fact that we have a qualified, again, administrative assistant that's taking on more administrative duties and more duties that a, you know, potential, so the way we had it, the superintendent was more of a procurement, contract, financial person. The assistant superintendent was more the crew chief laborer side. We've sort of swapped that a little bit. You know, Brian is fantastic, but Brian is more the laborer side. So with Mac, who's the admin, taking on more of the procurement and things like that, we don't need another second in command that handles either one of those. So the staff all seem to agree. I think they wanted to know sort of what's gonna happen down the line. If we add additional staff, would we need another crew chief potentially? What that would mean for advancing the laborers. And that's all still up in the air. I think if we needed to add additional staff, we would certainly look at that. But right now, I think adding, with the 2 appointments tonight, we are back to full staffing at the highway department. And so I think we're right where we need to be with
So
the
no one's
consolidation.
losing their job?
No one is losing their job. Nope.
Thank you.
JT?
Is there any effort being made, especially at the 2 top positions in the tier, to be cross-trained so that if one of them is out, the other actually is able to at least take on enough of the role of the other individual to keep things moving smoothly?
So yes and no. So the cemetery supervisor is considered the same classification as the highway crew chief. We've tried cross-training. I'm still getting through that. When the superintendent is on vacation, the crew chief runs the daily operations. So he's sort of given a project list from the superintendent that says, these are the things I'd like you to cover, and then the crew chief assigns the crews and takes care of the work. And then I'll just say business manager, because that is the way we're moving. The business manager could then handle day-to-day operations, paying the invoices, processing payroll, things like that. So it's not necessarily a cross-training, but everyone can still do their jobs. So if the business manager's not there, operations don't stop. If the superintendent's not there, operations don't stop.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it's not a full cross-training, but they all know enough to continue with operations.
Great.
That's great. Thank you all for your excellent questions.
Yeah.
Shall we close the public hearing?
Ask if there's anyone from the public.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this? Tom?
I'm actually very much in favor of consolidating the 2 groups. I'm concerned about the structure that's being proposed. I think Brian's gonna do a great job as highway superintendent. He's done a great job for the town for many, many years. But I'm concerned about now giving him fiscal responsibilities over the perpetual care funds that's not needed. I'm worried about the restructuring. I think the select board could actually take on that financial responsibility. I don't think Brian or even the business manager, which may or may not be a new position based on what I heard, is set up to handle revolving accounts for perpetual care and things like that. I think Brian and the highway department right now are fabulous at taking care of the roads, but I don't think they should necessarily be involved in collecting money from and dispersing it to things that are kind of under their control, the way the cemetery committee does now. But,
Okay.
and then I'm also concerned about scope creep on, now, is the business manager gonna be a new position under a DPW director? And then we'll need another crew chief versus an assistant superintendent. I think that the current format of it, bringing the cemetery under the highway department, great idea, but with the current structure. And no additional responsibilities, other than making sure that the highway department is taken care of and making sure that the cemeteries are taken care of. Just my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, I will take a motion to.
One question, to address Tom's concerns, didn't we earlier vote to disperse the duties of the cemetery committee amongst you, the board. Would those address Tom's concerns? I don't remember exactly how we dispersed them.
No, that's only until we have someone legally obligated to do so. So we've dispersed those duties until either we reinstate a cemetery committee or we have a superintendent that oversees those. But it's important to note that, and I think I put it in my letter, that when the cemetery trustees were aware that they were going to be down to one, they voted themselves to move forward with this plan. The admin the business manager is not a new position. I'm changing the title from administrative assistant to business manager. And he's been handling day-to-day operations really since the cemetery supervisor has moved into the highway yard, because the cemetery trustees have not been tracking the funds. They were not doing perpetual care tracking. That's all been done through our accounting system. So in theory, it's been working that way for quite some time. They just gave it the blessing and said, okay, we're going to disperse the funds.
Right, but now you're putting it onto the highway department rather than where it currently resides, based on what you're saying.
Yes.
And it probably, my opinion is, it should probably stay where it currently is without the cemetery committee, rather than putting it onto the highway department. That, again, just my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you. I still don't fully understand your concern, because it sounds to me as though we have the positions handled, we've consolidated the departments, everyone within the departments is on board, and all the duties are covered.
Right, but the thing is, then somebody who generally, or even right now, even with the consolidation, doesn't handle the perpetual care funds, now you're gonna dump that on them. And then I'm worried about scope creep. They will all of a sudden need another position.
It sounds like if they need training, they will
No.
get it, but it also sounds like that's actually being handled within
What-
our
Well, it's
system.
being handled right now because it hasn't been dumped onto the highway department. The highway department, it does a fabulous job, and they have for years, and they've done whatever's been asked of them. But asking them to handle funds is not something that I feel is appropriate for them.
Denise, in your opinion, does someone who's trained in procurement and
Payroll.
what else, payroll, is that a person who can handle a revolving fund and taking in and dispersing monies for?
Yes, so they've been doing it since July 1st, the highway department, because that was part of your vote, that the cemetery supervisor would, with the cemetery the highway superintendent with the cemetery supervisor, would make those allocations. So they are tracking it now, they are maintaining those documents in that perpetual care fund. Dolores and I are signing cemetery deeds. That's how it was dispersed previously.
And if I'm not mistaken, through the accounting process, there's financial checks and balances on that as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Great. Thank you for your comments. I think we're going to move on if there's no further comment from either the board or the public. I'll take a motion to close the hearing.
Madam Chair, I move that the public hearing on consolidation of the cemetery department and the highway department into a Department of Public Works be closed by roll call vote.
Second.
JT,
Aye.
Ingeborg,
Aye.
Hector,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
chair votes aye. That's unanimous.
I'm glad I was able to add a little spice to the public hearing.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Tom. So just, there is no vote required under the charter of the select board. If the board so wishes to support the proposal, there is a motion in here. There's no requirement to do so. It just requires a public hearing and town meeting. So I did put it on there just in case someone wanted to support it, but there's no requirement to do so.
So would this be a support of the warrant article? Or
No, just the consolidation in general.
Got it.
Of the process of the thing.
Madam Chair, I move to support the consolidation of the cemetery department and the highway department into a department of public works.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think this is an excellent idea, and I think it has been well thought out in its process. And it is high time, actually, that this finally took place.
And I no longer have to tell people, we don't have a DPW.
That's right, that's the big one.
We have separate departments. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you,
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
So many permits.
So many permits.
So many parties.
Oh, yes, parties.
So, special event permits for the Stow Friends of the COA events at Pompseticket Community Center.
If anyone is here on behalf of this, could you raise your virtual hand?
Is there anybody else on?
Yeah,
It's just Stow TV is the background right now.
and I don't think so, so.
I just don't see anybody across the top.
No. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes, please.
I've had a fair amount of experience with the Stowe Friends of the Council on Aging, and I can offer my insight if you wish.
I read the applications and I didn't have a lot of questions.
I would just like to say that 2 of the 3 have been long-standing events in town, and have been very successful and extremely beneficial in offering the services, not just to the seniors, but also transportation for those that carry, whether it's a mental or physical challenge.
Do we have separate motions for these?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Of course we do.
Does,
Madam Chair.
does the board have any other comments? Please, go ahead.
Everything's here, right?
It is.
I'll take those, I'll.
Everything's,
Madam
everything's.
Chair, I move to grant a permit to the Stowe Friends of the Council on Aging, SFCOA, for a COA gift shop and more pop-up on Saturday, September 30th, 2023, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. at the Pompseticket Community Center, pending town administrator approval that all documents have been received.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a quick question,
Yeah.
just procedurally, when they do a little pop-up, why do they need a permit from us?
Because they're occupying the public access with traffic. They're expecting, the parking lot to be full, they're using the town property. If it was just an event in there, but they're expecting a large number of folks coming in and out, so we just make sure that, they have their food permits and they have if there's a traffic plan needed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move to grant a permit to the Stowe Friends of the Council on Aging, SFCOA, for a holly fair on Saturday, November 4th, 2023, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. at the Pompseticket Community Center, pending town administrator approval that all documents have been received.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move to grant a permit to the Stowe Friends of the Council on Aging, SFCOA, for the Second Chance Annual Holiday Sale on Saturday, December 2nd, 2023, from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Pompseticket Community Center, pending town administrator approval that all documents have been received.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Check that one off. Now we have the request for several one-day liquor licenses at Shelburne Farm for cider pouring on Saturdays and Sundays in September through November, early November.
Madam Chair, I move to.
No, we need, I think you need to discuss this.
We've got Ted on and, hello, Ted.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. Do you want to say a few things about your request first, or?
Sure. I guess I'll say just a couple things. So this is a first for us. We've never done any special events like this in the past. The world of apple picking is evolving, and we're trying to keep up. That's really the bottom line, and it is for the bottom line. What's happened is all of our fellow orchards are starting to move in this direction. So we know Honey Pot and Stow is doing this. Carlson's and Harvard is doing this. Tugas is doing it, and so more often than not, when we're trying to market people to come to the farm to do events, especially, the first question is, when does your cider tent operate? And the answer until this point has been it doesn't. So we're just trying to keep up and make sure that we stay current and keep our offering sort of consistent with what everybody else is doing. And it's kind of exciting. I mean, I think it has such, the cider in general has such a rich historical aspect to it, and it's so tied to our region. So we're kind of excited about all the things we can do with it. But this will be our first step.
Great. Kathy?
Kathy Sparrow, 74 West Acton Road, and speaking for myself and for Jim, who's at the planning board meeting tonight. We just wanted to say that we are fully in support of this permit. We probably have the best view and sound of the orchard, and I just feel like Liz and Ted run a really nice operation there. It's a tough year for all the orchards this year, so we're excited to see them try this out.
Thank you. That's very kind. Really, really kind. Thank you.
I have a process question. So I remember when Honey Pot came to us that we said, this is a slightly cumbersome, it's probably cumbersome for you to have a number of one-day permits. And so I understand that you're trying this out, and I hope it goes excellently for you. Would you plan then to go to the alcohol board and get a permanent license possibly as soon as next year, or?
As soon as next year, if this goes, best case scenario, it goes really well, and then we're gonna wanna make it a permanent fixture. So yeah, in that case, we would just go for the full license. I think it's fair to say that we probably would never actually brew the cider. We're gonna be buying it from, we're really trying to emphasize local, and so we're gonna work with Pony Shack in Boxborough,
Nice.
and then Stormont Cider, who works with Tom Mansfield, also local. But we're never going to brew because we don't press our own cider. We ship our apples out and bring it in. But we want to have the full license that's required, so that it would just be a simple, whatever the inspections are and renewals each year would be probably a much lighter weight for everybody. But I don't want to get too far ahead of us. We want to make sure everything goes. It's a transition for us, and we know it's going to probably change our business a little bit, and so we're just trying to take baby steps, a little bit, we're just being cautious. But yeah, assuming everything goes according to plan, that's what we would do.
Of course. Well, I hope it goes most excellently and that the bumps in the road are very, very small.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I noticed each license, the last statement is to complete and pass a final inspection with public safety. Do they have to do it each time, or is once good enough?
No, it happened last week.
Okay.
So they have, they met with public safety initially, they went through some concerns, and then public safety went back out last week and did the inspection of the site, and it is good for the slew of licenses.
Great. And I understand also, Ted, that although you're the only name on the application saying that you're gonna be pouring the cider, that you won't be alone. So that's good, because I've run a coffee bar and been slammed by a line out the door, and it's an adrenaline rush.
Yes. When I first started putting the papers through, I was the only one, but now I have, I think we have 4 employees who are now fully, I think the 4th one is still lagging, but we have 3 that are fully trained and certified, and we have one more. So, and we're going to continue, probably add a few more. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be on the front line alone.
And your insurance is gonna cover your employees pouring?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he provided the liquor liability and the certification, so they have been tip certified and crowd manager certified.
Anything else?
No.
Let's move this along.
I move to approve one-day liquor licenses for Shelburne Farm, 106 West Acton Road, Edward Painter, for Saturdays and Sundays, September 16th through November 5th, 2023, and for Monday, October 9th, 2023, Columbus Day, for a total of 8 weekends, 17 days, provided that all requirements have been met and approved by administration.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with it.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
everybody.
Have fun.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Right. Review town administrator goals. It's just us chickens.
Is it just us chickens?
There's a
That's
few
still-
people.
Are there a few? I see, they don't show.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not showing up.
But
It's
oh, there's
okay.
8 people.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Thank you.
These are the last year's goals that we're reviewing.
Yes.
And the years before.
Yes, well, you don't need to review, I mean, you certainly can, but we just never reviewed the fiscal '23 goals before we started with the fiscal '24, so I just think it would be helpful to talk about them and review them.
These weren't very good goals.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that we sort of asked you to keep an eye on stuff that was just sort of already happening and
Well, not necessarily
well,
should have been their responsibility.
it wasn't your responsibility. Or things that weren't under your control.
I remember
like the
voting for
votes.
these, I just now look at them and go, what was I thinking?
Well, that's what you said too, that they weren't very concise goals, so.
Right.
Yeah, how can you stay involved with a Bose property sale? It's,
Well,
She's the
she's the contact person.
the contact person for the town, right?
Right, I mean, I do, but
You do,
it's at
but
their
it's not-
discretion.
right,
I mean,
it's not-
They could
yeah,
say,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
we're not including you, but I do.
Can I ask a question, Madam Chair? Not to put this on you, but are there things that you want to work on that would be exciting projects for you that you feel like you're not able to work on? Cause I feel like when I was putting the goals together last year, it was like I didn't want to overburden you with things that, you know, you're doing your job. Then for us to kind of throw would seem like arbitrary goals at you, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to but if there are things that you're seeing, because I feel like that's one of your strong suits, is that you're looking at everything from 10,000 feet. Certainly if there are things that you want to be working on that you feel like if the board would just say, this is some, like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Or,
I think so.
okay. I'm not trying to put it on your plate, but at the same time, I don't want to give you a goal that is something that is just not, just to give you a goal.
If
She'll
I
let
could
us
just
know.
make a comment and add on to that. I really feel that the goals that would be presented to Denise would be the goals that we would want as well. So I'm almost feeling like it needs to be a joint venture. Because I really feel like it's all of us moving the town forward in the vision that we carry. So separating out town administrator goals and select board goals seems to be a bit.
So I don't disagree, and I just do wanna clarify, so the fiscal '24 goal discussion is not tonight. because I think we all discussed with town meeting, and so this was just sort of to recap while you're doing my review, if you wanted to review the goals that had been set. And we never really did at the last meeting, we were pressed for time, we just sort of moved through it.
I was very
So,
confused.
If there were questions on fiscal 23 goals or fiscal 22 goals, and I agree, I think that's, we had the conversation about that we need to do a better goal setting. But so I appreciate that I'm not prepared for that because
I wasn't
focused
prepared
on
for it, which is why I was concerned.
I think I don't even think it's on the next agenda. I think we put it like the first
Right.
October meeting.
I was so confused.
I saw that agenda item and was like,
Wait a second, I
did the review, I didn't do everything else.
Well, there's nothing in the review to talk about the goals, which
Right,
is
right,
silly
right.
anyways, but.
Okay,
Yeah, heck.
all right, good, glad we got
Well,
all that out of the
In
way.
line with Megan's question, are there any things that you achieved this past year that aren't highlighted in this goal that you would like to point out?
Well, I think there's a lot, to be honest with you, but to try and quantify it at this moment, I could go back to the list I put together when we met for my contract. I sort of outlined, the last 2.5 years. I think for me right now, obviously it's the library project, because I'm so heavily involved in the project and where we've come and hopefully where we will continue to go. That's a really exciting project. I think it's a great community project. I think, consolidation of departments and looking at staffing, I think has been huge. Trying to increase, community outreach to me has been huge. I feel like I've tried to do a lot with that and it's been very receptive. While it might not be a goal or it could continue to be a goal. But it's funny and it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while the phone will ring at like 6:40 and I answer it and they're like, did I call someone at home? No, I'm in the office. But you answer the phone. I'm like, I'm sitting at my desk. The fact that I feel like I'm accessible and people can reach me and people, can send me a text message over the weekend. And so I think just in terms of, where the town was in August of 2020 versus where we are today, I feel like has changed so dramatically in so many culture, accessibility, communication, transparency, financial status. So it's a little hard to quantify specifics off the top of my head because it's been a whirlwind. And I think so many of the projects that, Stow Acres is a huge project that's exciting that I'm excited to be part of. When we finalize the Lower Village report with the consultant, to see that and to figure out where those next steps will be super exciting. There's nothing that I'm involved in that I would say I'm not excited about because I think, anything that moves us forward, I get excited about. So I know that was a vague answer, but.
Well, it was also kind of a vague question, just going in line.
Just following my vague question.
But to that antithesis, are there things that you wish you had accomplished and hadn't?
Yeah, I think you could always say there's things you wish you could have accomplished and hadn't. There's a ton of projects that have, and wouldn't have been me specifically, but be able to provide more resources when it comes to, other projects or, capital things that we have going on. I feel like sometimes there's so much going on that, I can't be in every project, I can't be everywhere. But I think that, even in the last year, I feel that when folks know that if they need a question or if they have a question, they can come to me. But they also know that they don't need to. I let them make decisions. Talking about a carport for the Council on Aging, and today they were like, "Do you need to be involved in the color?" I was like, "I do not need to be involved in the color. Just do it." Like I gave that project to you. I don't need to be involved. So there are a number of things I would have loved to do, but there's still time to do them. We talked about the website. I would love to completely change the website, but that takes time and energy, and I just feel like, we talked about the newsletter, I would have loved to have had the newsletter that I wanted to out by now, it just hasn't happened. So I feel like things in terms of outreach, there's more I would like to do or would have been able to do, it's just time just gets away from you.
Well, maybe in October, we can also talk about how the select board what the select board could do to help you achieve those goals.
You're looking at me.
Yes.
I just wanna add that I think you helped the town with a lot of legal cases as well, and that should be acknowledged. That we were successful with Lower Village, and there are other cases that we're working on. And I do believe that your unbiased review of the issues has been very helpful to the select board. So, and you know the facts, and if we ask a question, you're able to respond. So I think that is a piece of what's pretty important to this town, so
Thank you.
frivolous or non.
Just to add, I have to say, honestly, it's a pleasure to work with you because when issues are presented, they're typically pretty complex. Nothing's really easy or black or white. And the one thing I can say that I have really appreciated immensely is you have come in with possible multiple solutions to the issues and pros and cons of each of those decisions, which really makes it much easier for us to come up with an informed decision. I honestly have to say, for me, that is an absolute invaluable resource. And how you do it, I have no idea. All I can say is, I have said to you privately, I'll say publicly, I'm glad that you sit in the chair that you sit in and not me.
Did you know you were getting your?
Good, so I guess my review is done.
Well, it's just like when Hector asked the question, what have you been proud accomplishments, and you list some of them, but I felt the legal was important, and your data that you're prepared, you know the pros and cons, and you give us choices, so those were to answer Hector's question.
Well, yes, I mean, obviously, the review I put together was based on the goals that you all gave me. I could certainly put a running list of just projects and items in general, but I was focusing on the goals that
Okay,
were set.
got it. All right, good enough.
And I do wanna comment on the letter you received, Ingeborg, with my responses not being concise or specific, cause they're not, but to me.
The rest of the board doesn't know about.
I know, but it will be in their packet next meeting, so
Yes.
so Ingeborg received a comment that my status was unacceptable. Because there's terms like in process and been meeting and has taken a back seat. But to be honest, none of the goals I was given were quantifiable, so there were no deadlines, there was no, continue to update the website, okay.
Yeah, right, and that's why
Continue
you said.
oversight, okay.
And you proactively said they were not good goals. So I think we basically agree with the author, and the next ones will be a little.
Right, so I do understand that, but yes, it's hard to respond to goals that are so vague, with a quantifiable response.
Yeah, right.
Our job to make that all clearer and.
Right.
Got it. So I think just for, so on the next agenda is my review. And then I believe it's the meeting after that we'll focus on goals.
Great.
Sounds great. Anything else on the topic?
Not from me.
Okay.
Moving on.
Let's authorize the town administrator to obtain a quote for health insurance from Maya.
Yes, so as you know, I mentioned it last year when we received a double-digit increase on the health insurance, that we would like to get some comparable quotes to see what we could do for employees and the town for some savings. So the two largest competitors, if you will, would be the States Group Insurance Commission and then MIA, the Massachusetts Insurance Interlocal Association. In order for MIA to release a quote, they need a vote of the board to show that we're serious about obtaining a quote. They've prepared it and it's ready, they just won't release it until you vote. So we will be looking at our current plan, which we are part of the Minuteman Neshoba Regional Consortium, I think it's called. We'll look at that with the GIC, we'll look at that against MIA. On your next agenda, your next meeting, I will be asking you to vote, and I off the top of my head, I forget the provisions of the law, that would allow us to meet with the unions and have a discussion about potentially changing. Changing insurance plans are a subject of bargaining because they are listed in the union contracts. So this is just the first step, just to get the quote. The next meeting, we'll have the next step, and then we'll actually have a dialogue to see what makes the most sense financially and equitably for the plans. The intention is not to reduce employee benefits by any means. Quite frankly, most of the other two providers, there's more flexibility because they're larger networks versus the one that we're currently in. Additionally, the current network that we're in my opinion, has underfunded the plans. And so that's why we had such a high contribution this year, because they're making up for prior years and not properly funding. And I don't think that that's going to go away. I think that's going to continue with us for a while. The benefits of both Maya or the GIC is with the GIC, you have hundreds of thousands of employees because it's every state employee, every legislator, and all the municipalities that have joined it. And with Maya, and I'm not sure of the number, but there's probably 20 to 25 communities still under the Maya umbrella. So there's more folks to spread the risk out against, and they do a better job with rating the plans to fund it properly. So this is just step one to allow us to obtain a quote. We will talk about it again in the future when we have a recommendation on what we're going to do with insurance in general.
2 questions. Who are we with currently?
It's Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, I think is what it's called. It's a smaller, I think there's 6 towns, and one of the towns recently left, so then we're again absorbing the liability that was left when they left. And I wouldn't be surprised if other communities are looking at leaving.
And second question, did Maya explain why they needed a board vote just to give us a quote?
No, it's just their process.
Okay.
Let's move this along then.
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the town administrator to obtain a quote for health insurance for town employees from Maya.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Good. Let's dispose of some technology.
Thank you.
Do we even need to discuss this? It's pretty clear in the package that these are worthless. Old computers and the hard drives have been removed, and so can
I'm
we
just
just
curious what happens to them.
get recycled, I hope.
Yeah, they get recycled. We could put them out if someone wanted them, or they just get recycled.
Okay.
Recycling's good. Take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to declare as surplus the goods and equipment on the list provided by the IT department valued at less than $10,000 and belonging to the town, and to authorize the disposal of these surplus items.
Second. Sorry, I was moving on to something else.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
I hear Ingeborg volunteering to read the minutes at the next meeting.
Read the minutes.
I mean, not read the minutes, read the motions.
The motion.
I'm
Or
like,
at least
Hannah.
maybe the
I was like,
seconds.
man.
Maybe the seconds.
All right.
They
I was
happen.
reading minutes on the thing.
Alright,
Okay.
it's not even 8:30 and we're
It's not.
behaving this way.
So, before we get to minutes, do we want to discuss anything about town meeting?
Oh, yeah,
Do we
right.
want to talk about recommending articles or anything like that? Yes, Megan?
Madam Chair, may I speak? So, on Saturday, I went to the school walkthrough, for Neshoba. Because I felt like I had not been in the school. I had only been, on the athletic fields for my children's various, things. And so I wanted to go in and see if it was a situation that was, you know, maybe being like, oh, we need a new school, right? We need a new school. I had pages of notes that I was taking on what different things were. I was taking pictures. JT was also there and can certainly give his 2 cents as well. But to me, and again, this is a board discussion as to how we decide to move forward, whether or not we support this warrant article, yada, yada, yada. But I feel like everything that I was hearing was not just on kind of the visual, kind of what it looked like. It was more what they're dealing with. So there's a lot of really old equipment that they can't just get replacement parts for anymore because it's so old. Half of the classrooms are interior classrooms, which means they have no windows. And so you're walking down these corridors and they're all made of cinder block. And so I think it was 20% of the rooms, what did I write down? The current classrooms right now in their cinder block configurations are 20 square feet smaller than the MSBA standards. You can't necessarily reconfigure cinder block rooms, right? I have a million other things, but what I wanted to say is I was really glad, and it was a huge eye-opening experience, and I think I would really suggest to anybody that can go on the building committee website and look at any of the presentations and any of the pictures and any of the walkthroughs. It is an old building. It is end of life. There is an option to repair it, but it is to get it up to code. It's not to get us a building that we could have for the next 50 years. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about it. I just urge anybody who has questions about it, there is a lot of information online to just please go look at it. That's all. I probably missed about 47 things I wanted to say, but.
I was there as
Points,
well,
counterpoints.
and
And you think it's a beautiful school.
I have a different opinion. I will state this, that I have over 35 years of experience in both commercial and residential construction and construction projects, renovations, rehabs, and retrofits. I was looking for very specific things when I went through the building. I was looking for stress fractures. I was looking for,
Structural issues,
yes.
okay.
I really did not see any major structural issue. I do agree with Megan's point that things have started to age out. There's no question about that. Does it need a new roof? Yep, sure does. It is a rubber ballast roof, and I don't know if any of you know what that is. That is a layer of rubber that is put down, and then on top of it, you put stones.
Oh, that's old technology.
It is.
So,
I
well,
remember that.
actually, believe it or not, it's still used today.
Yeah.
But the problem is, when there is a leak, it's very difficult to track down. And quite often, what can happen is when you're trying to research the leak, you can actually cause more damage if you are not careful. I think the present facilities director is extremely knowledgeable, and whatever is decided will take care of things properly and has the knowledge. As an example, if it's just renovated, that's what the voters wish to do, you're not gonna have the issues that they've had in the past, as far as that goes. In the mechanical areas, which is what Megan was referring to, yeah, the heating systems definitely need to be removed and new systems put in. I remember the principal saying 50% of the classrooms were interior. I actually researched that, and that's not actually the case. It's actually far fewer. But there are some interior classrooms, there's no question about
That
that.
scares the bejesus out of me with
I think
respect to.
any of the interior classrooms should scare the bejesus out of you. They look like jail cells. I mean,
Well, not
it's,
only that, but how do you get out? if-
that is the
if
bigger,
there's a shooter or
there's no,
something?
The ones
there's
with
no
the
egress.
windows, you have the same issues. The school is the school is the school. I mean, in most schools, you go into a classroom and typically in a lot of them, you don't have access, double exit doors. That's why they have the sprinkler systems and things
I
of
know,
that
but I
nature
just
in
mean
place.
in terms of, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, that's none of my business, sorry. No, I was just saying that, just when you said interior classrooms, my heart just stopped.
Mhm.
But that's a separate issue from what you were talking about, so I apologize.
I have dealt with interior rooms on retrofits and renos, and you actually can do quite a bit with them so that they do not look so dark and dreary,
It's not how they look, it's how they function.
but also how they function, as well. I mean, there's an awful lot that can be done as far as that goes.
If I could just interject, in terms of egress, the code is very specific. And if you have to bring a building up to code, there is a distance to an exit that is mandatory, and you cannot have
Right.
people stuck in the middle of a
Mhm.
building unable to get out. And so I mean, there's very clear language in the codes about that.
The issue that they brought up a couple of times were the windows and how they're built into the structure of the building and they're actually holding up the roof. I put that in quotes. It's not quite the situation. Also, you need to understand that when a structure like that is built, the tensile strength of the glass that's used is actually stronger than a steel beam. So I don't quite understand what they're trying to bring out there. It is a single pane situation, however, I did look and there's enough depth in that area where they could actually, rather than remove that window, you can actually put another on the outside of it, which gives it the efficiencies of ratings as well. So people are gonna vote however they wish to vote. I just really wanna make sure that the proper information and people are making educated decisions. So, in my experience and what I have dealt with in the past, and the price tag that's being put forth, I have some serious reservations. The other aspect is when they did their assessment of the taxes, they did it on the 2022 basis. In fact, our median 2023, according to the Realtors Association in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which runs pretty high, it's actually about $850,000 is our actual median sale price, not $641,000. So that means when you do the calculations, the increase in taxes for individuals is not gonna be $1,300 to $1,500. It's gonna be significantly higher than that. And I have a problem with that, with a lot of folks. And there's a lot of folks that are really expressing not just concern, but fear that they're not going to be able to stay here in town. That, to me, is an eye-opener, and I really feel we need to be very careful.
Okay, guys, I just wanna stop for a second. It sounds to me like we're discussing whether to support the vote for the article for the school to town meeting. Would you say that's accurate? Are we, should
Actually,
we
it sounds more
continue
like
to
we're
get a
voting
sense
on
of should we continue to get a sense of the meeting, or my question to you is, should we step back a moment and look at the town meeting warrant and decide if there are articles that we would like to weigh in on one way or the other? I mean, I find this very valuable, and I wanted to go to the walkthrough myself, but there was a tree down on one side and a tree down on the other side. Not even on my driveway. So do we wanna think about whether there are articles that we wanna,
Well,
to weigh in
I'm
on?
I'm gonna guess that on this particular case, we'll have a divided vote. But I do just wanna say, without any disrespect to you at all, because I completely respect your experience and your approach. But I believe that your observations on a 1 or 2 hour walkthrough are not the same as the years of review that the professionals, you haven't had the opportunity to study that school to the depth that the professionals have, and I have to respect the work. I also completely agree that the cost is scary, all right? And that I completely respect what the town is going to vote, just as you said. But I just would be, this is me being snotty, just a little, when you make these observations, they're legitimate from the point at which you saw them, all right? But it's not the same. I mean, you didn't go through all the studies and the structural issues that they went through. So I guess the other piece that might come into play is the costs, at least of the areas that you've identified, they may be less, but for how long? And then the part that, aside from the physical building, there's also the concern I have about the quality of teaching for science and getting our students and future population, giving them the opportunity to have the proper equipment.
That equipment is there.
But it was the school department told us that it was outdated.
It is outdated.
And
But it
so,
can be updated in the present building.
well,
that I
it's
do
it's
know.
not only that, it's just, well, all right. We can't, so, yes, you have your observations. I would just be careful that you don't present. You are presenting your opinion based on your experience, but based on limited exposure to the data. That's all I'm saying, all right? And that should be noted, because we can't, and you can say all this at town meeting, right? So I guess to answer your question, no, I don't know if we need to take a vote. I just think that, I just needed to say publicly that your observations are based on limited information.
But I also did research, and nowhere in any of this work that was done by engineering or anything else have said that that building is unsafe.
No one said it's unsafe.
No one said it's unsafe. They just said it's not, the building's not gonna fall down tomorrow.
No one said
It's the
that.
quality of the education for the students.
Right.
There's a lot of different parts. And if I may, Madam Chair, and then I'm just gonna drop it, because I do not think, to Ingeborg's point, that we're gonna belabor this. The building committee's been working on this for 5 years, 6 years, we're not. But to your point about rehabbing buildings, Mr. Toole,
You can say JT.
JT.
Okay, we don't have to be so formal.
I don't know, and I can speculate that you've not rehabbed a school while there are children that are going in it. There is another cost involved in rehabbing that school, which is having to house those children. And so those children would then have to be housed in modular units, and you're basically building a mobile home unit of schools so that those kids can go to school as well. And so that's another cost.
I did.
And as did I. It's not an ideal learning
The 60s
situation.
was a time of school expansion.
But anyway, so thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me
Yeah, you opened this can.
open this can of worms, but I just felt like I want people to come to town meeting, I want people to come and vote. It is
Yeah, you
your
do too.
taxpayer
I know.
money, so that's all, I'm done.
I wouldn't worry about that. I think they'll come and vote.
Oh, they're gonna come and
They're
vote.
gonna come and they're gonna vote and things, and I really
It's gonna be the democratic process.
hope that a lot of people do come out. Because
This is the opportunity.
the opportunity, and I really would like to see what our voters are looking at and what they're thinking about.
I agree.
Yep,
If I could give my 2 cents worth.
you've been very patient.
To Ingeborg's counterpoint, JT may not have examined every nook and cranny of the building. But I also am suspicious of a contractor that says, let's see what we can do to your building to improve it, and we'll find all the faults and all the improvements we can make. So, and I'm not saying either one did the other. JT certainly didn't have access to all the reams of data that the contractors had, but the contractors had a specific goal in mind, and that's to put in a new building
No, that,
and find a way
I
to
wouldn't
do it.
disagree with
No.
that.
Have you been to the building?
Yes,
You've walked through,
Yes. that was one of the
The
first things I
boiler
did after I got
Okay.
elected
They
onto
have
the
all the
select board.
alternatives that they value.
But I will
Yeah.
also say, and I haven't decided either way on how I will vote on this. One of the things that annoys me is when the superintendent was here and explaining this whole financial process, if I understood correctly, he said that the MSBA was basing what they were going to give to us on 2018 or 2019 figures.
That's correct.
They have not increased their figures because their figures are legislated and the legislature has not increased their figures.
That is very
So
true.
this state agency whose purpose is to help us build buildings and is funded by our taxes is denying us the funds that they were supposed to give us
But it's-
because of a legislative issue.
But it's a legislative issue, it's not the MSBA's fault.
But
Either.
because of this, now our town is split in 2 camps of pay whatever we can to build a new school, or let's keep an old school going and figure out how to Band-Aid it. Nobody's saying, let's talk to Jamie Eldridge, let's talk to
Yeah.
Kate Hogan,
Yeah.
and let's get the legislator to fix the MSBA, rather than having the MSBA hold it over our head, take the funds now or wait for 15 years.
Actually, just so you know, that's not the case either. I researched that and I can give you a number of towns that did not go to the bottom of the list and wait 15 years.
But that's what we were told.
Right, but they, actually, the longest period of time that they waited was 23 months.
Which
To get-
comes back
get-
to, if I may
Go back
finish,
into
for
the
funding.
MSBA,
the
the
refinance.
pipeline of money.
pipeline again, thank you.
Yeah.
Which goes back to what my other point that was annoying me when we were hearing this speech. I'm in IT. I have a lot of people come to me, is this spam or is this not spam? And one of the key things that I look at to figure out if something is spam is the spammer is saying, do this or bad things will happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard coming from the board, that we do this or bad things will happen, and I was ready to enable my spam filter. Unfortunately, I can't because it's about the the high school.
So unfortunately, we have a situation where the school board is strongly invested in a particular outcome. And so they are pitching
Yes,
one message to us.
yes.
And I don't think that's wrong, but it's clear to me that that is the case, that
But
they
to
are
be
strongly
informed
invested.
and to make sure that we see all the aspects, it's also good to understand the motivation of the building board and what they're presenting.
It's true.
And that when people come out to vote, they have all angles. I don't know what the right answer is. I know we need a new school building. I also know we don't need to be kicking out people who are on fixed income because they paid off their house, worked years to pay off their house, but can't afford the taxes on it anymore.
I'd like to comment too, that as a contractor that I haven't worked on large scale projects that JT has, but I've done a lot of repairs. And it's a lot of the work, sort of pulling out rotten pieces of stuff and figuring out how much rot to take out and where to stop ripping it apart and how to how to bandage it back together. It's almost demoralizing work. It's very difficult work. So as a contractor, it's not easy and very often, I think from even homeowner's point of view, it's hard to visualize something improved that's being repaired over, let's wholesale start over. And I remember Andrew Martin saying, our last meeting, well, how often do people tear their houses down and build over? But they do rip out their kitchens, you know, and there are ways to modify your kitchen so that it still works well, it can be updated without having to completely redesign it.
Well, and people in homes don't go from a population of 4 to 20.
Very good point.
If people in homes went from a population of 4 to 20 in 10 years, I guarantee you some destruction would be going on in reconstruction.
Well, we live in a very privileged town
True.
of a certain population, and our population doesn't do that, but some probably do. So, but anyway, I mean, I think that it's harder to get behind. We're just gonna fix the broken stuff in the school project than it is we're gonna get this beautiful new state of the art thing. And it's an
May not be
easy,
state of the art.
well, it's
It's going to be better.
better.
I think our budget is going to limit state of the art.
I would like to know more about the MSBA
Yeah, that was
process.
very disappointing to hear.
because I, like you,
That
I mean,
was-
my
that
spam filter went up
ticked
when
me
I heard
off,
that,
yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't like to be,
Well, I also heard it, the MSBA point was bothersome to me. But counterpoint to you about, you know, what I heard from the guys up there, we went through all these alternatives and we costed out, you know, conceptual, and I know conceptual is a lot of assumptions. But we came to this conclusion. So I understand and I'm sympathetic to the perspective that they have an agenda they're promoting. I'm totally sympathetic to that. But on the other hand, so that skews data, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm not saying their agenda's bad.
Right. So, but I also have 30 years of experience in evaluating pros and cons of environmental impacts. And so I know, it's like, I sometimes just realize that the experts do know, and they do try to do the best thing, and I have to listen to them. So, in any event, I think.
Well,
let me ask the board again. Do
Oh,
we
do we
feel
wanna
like
vote?
we would like to support any of the articles that are going to town meeting?
Well,
I would like to support the library warrant article.
Great,
right, fine.
fantastic.
But I don't know if we're all ready, and I don't wanna force that vote on everybody. I mean, I know how I am inclined to vote, but Hector said he was still debating, and I don't know if you wanna.
And I
So
would
wait a
say,
minute, you're on the school, let's,
in answer to your question, I don't think we're ready to support the school vote.
Correct.
We might be ready to support the library and the warrant and the charter review changes, but
Well,
it doesn't-
that's easy peasy, yeah, you're right.
it doesn't sound like this
personally, I would
board
like, my personal feeling about the school is that I would like the town to make their vote and make this decision
Independent of
independent of our
Yeah.
opinions.
I think that's fine.
Because I think
That's
it's
fair
gonna be
I think it's good.
enough.
Good perspective.
Yes.
Okay then,
But any of the other, or any of the rest of the warrant, or should we just pass this, should we let our town administrator go home pretty sometime tonight?
I seriously, all joking aside, I would like to support the library article. I really feel that this is something that is really community-based and, you know, really thorough. And with the extra money, because of the work that our wonderful administrator has done, it's not going to cost the taxpayers any more money.
Wait, could you say that again?
I said, because of the wonderful work our town administrator has done, you know, the 2.5 mil. She's worked it out, so we're not gonna have to pay extra out of pocket. She has that figured out.
Okay,
So
Free
we already
cash.
voted
We
the
already,
monies.
the town already voted the big ticket item,
Yeah.
and so now we're putting some gravy on it.
But the gravy isn't costing the taxpayers at this point.
Right. They use the
Right.
drippings and put in some flour and stuff.
Denise added some roux.
Your Mary
You know,
Poppins
going back to
spoonful of
punching.
sugar.
Have we lost it again?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go home.
Yep.
So
Did-
you
so
wanna
is
make
that
a
a motion?
motion?
I'd like to make a motion, yes. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we support the article for the library,
So if I can, just Article 2.
Article 2.
Did someone second it?
Second.
any further discussion? Not including gravy. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain, but that is
Why are you
4 to nothing.
Just because,
Just because?
Because.
Alright, can we finish this agenda?
And Madam Chair, I would like to make the motion that we support the changes to the charter, which is articles.
Everything but 17 and 1.
How do you know that?
No, so 3 is not a charter change.
So it's not?
15 is not a charter change. No, so 3 is the consolidation of the highway and cemetery, but that's not the charter change. That's the actual authority to actually consolidate.
Okay,
Which we already voted on.
We just voted to.
We did.
We know
support
what
that
you
anyway.
mean.
So actually, so the support you gave under that, you would like to make to town meeting? Is that, so if the moderator asks if the board has a recommendation?
Just back up and take the charter changes. Would you like to make a motion on that?
for the changes to the charter, which are articles,
So they are articles, I'm just gonna, 4 through 14.
articles 4 through 14, thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Any discussion at all? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
We're gonna
that's
get
unanimous.
fired, you know. All
Madam Chair,
Actually,
I would like
Keep
to
trying.
I'd like to make a motion that we support Article 3.
Didn't we already do that?
Yeah, we kinda, didn't we?
We just
No,
did
to
that.
town meeting, so she
Oh,
just
to
asked
town
us if we would
meeting.
like to,
Right.
so we're just clarifying that we will support.
Yes. Article 3, because if it's my understanding, Denise, if we support Article 3, then we don't have to worry about Article 9.
No, I mean, you supported, on the last vote, you're supporting all of the charter changes, so depending on how 3 plays out, your support is either given to 9 or 14, depending on.
Yeah.
But my question was, in your previous vote to support the consolidation, was that your recommendation to town meeting, or did you wanna make that as a second?
So
Actual
we're
vote.
making it as a separate
Okay,
vote, just
thank
to
you.
be clear.
So recommend.
Yes.
Did I hear a second?
second.
Do we have discussion?
What are we voting on?
Article 3.
Okay.
The support
Consolidation.
article
Say that
to
out
the town meeting.
Giving our, yes.
Oh my god,
Okay.
you're gonna get fired, we're all gonna get fired.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous.
So then can I ask, will you support Articles 15 and 16, which is to make Box Mill a public way and to change the bylaw to hold up permits for unpaid taxes?
Madam Chair,
But why are we're supporting everything but the school?
Well, that's how it's playing out right now.
I think we did good with what we supported.
Okay.
Let the town decide the other stuff.
I don't think we have to have.
I think 15 and 16 are perhaps less controversial. The tax one might have some controversy. Box Mill might have some controversy.
Well, we already did the eminent domain taking,
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that's
You think
pretty
those will be more
supportive.
controversial than the charter changes?
No.
That's fine. I just didn't know what you were making your way through.
Thanks, Jane.
No, I think we're good. My opinion.
do we move on to minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I thought they were good.
They're great.
Yay, Joyce.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the meeting minutes of the August 22nd, 2023 meeting as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's
Madam
unanimous.
Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Oh, wait, whoa, we didn't go through correspondence, there's still more stuff to go through.
Nice try.
God.
You guys have more stuff you wanna talk about tonight?
Absolutely. I'd like to go through every
Moving
single
on.
piece of correspondence.
Pardon?
I'm just kidding, I don't want to go through
Well,
every single
thank you, man.
I did have a question on the correspondence.
Yeah.
What is a fence viewer?
Oh my
great
goodness, it's the
question.
coolest job ever.
I
It
hear
is-
sarcasm.
your job.
No, actually, it's kind of a cool thing.
Oh, okay.
It goes back a long ways.
It's olden days.
So under the Mass General Law, a fence viewer is so if there was a piece of property that there could not be a determined boundary, the fence viewers, which are yourselves, would have to go out there and determine where the boundary would be if a fence was to be erected. Also, if there was a fence between two parties and they were fighting over who actually owned the fence and who needed to repair the fence and pay for the cost of the fence, you all would make that decision on how the cost would be split to repair such fence.
And they're really good surveyors also, I'll tell you
Yes.
that.
Hey,
The civil arguments that come between fences and putting one up and where it's going is a civil matter. And that's why, under the law, really anything other than the statutory requirement, is discretionary, and most of the, so we've had, this is the third one since I've been here, that people wanna have the fence viewers come out and they've all been civil arguments between the two neighbors, and don't rise to the level of what's required under Mass General Law.
Fence warrior.
But they really, I mean, it's very rare that you find communities that still have fence viewers.
Okay.
And it's even more rare when it's an entire select board as the fence viewers.
So it's a civil matter and.
So Megan will be 200 yards
Unfortunately, in this
down.
matter, it's a
I'll be
civil matter.
200 yards up and she'll go, yo!
listen, some of you did not do perambulation.
I
It's
did
all I'm
perambulation.
saying.
I liked perambulation.
Yeah.
Hector, you will find out what that is in the future.
I'm sure. Oh, isn't that where we walk the
been 5
borders of
years?
the town?
Yes.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Okay.
And I think we're one of the only towns that still does it.
We are.
Acton came out with us when we went.
Yes, and ours was never completed because it hinged on Hudson and they refused to do it with us.
Well, it's cause it's, right.
So ours was
One of our
actually never
markers is in the
completed.
water.
Yes, it was never completed, because we need other communities to participate and they don't actively do the perambulation on a regular basis.
It's kind of a funny thing.
It is.
I had a-
Okay.
I had a
Anyway,
customer
sorry.
with a stone, a random piece of granite in his mind that he found, sort of broken on the side of the road, near his driveway, and it was a boundary marker, a town
Yeah.
boundary marker. He lives
Yeah.
right near the
Yeah.
boundary, and so, it must have been abandoned. But I said, look at this, you've got Concord and Bedford here. And I know what it is, cause I've been out and done that.
It could have been Carlisle, or it could have been, anyway, all right,
Well,
let's,
no,
let's
but-
go for the last motion, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Call the vote, honey.
Hi.
Bye. Good night, everybody. Please don't.
I was
I
just,
guess
I was
it's
gonna be like my
unanimous.
kids, I was just gonna wait to see as long.
As long